Okay, so what we discussed yesterday was that in a country in the world somewhere, there was a stoning held 2 days ago for a woman that was accused of adultery. So they stoned her to death. And the discussion that grew off of that is whether you think that that is something which is right, wrong, messed up, or anything else. And what we ended with is, if it's right, it's right, and if it's wrong, it's wrong. Make sense?
No.
No?
You didn't really give a solid answer. Just kind of
Oh, no.
being around the bush there.
I was hoping that was good. Oh, well. I guess let me try to do it better. Oh, wait, we did the whole day yesterday, but I'll do it for you anyway. Yeah, and it goes like this. What we said yesterday was, if this is something which is good, then it's good. What I mean by that, in the example we gave about a shoulder or a leg, Anderson Silva, the spider from Brazil. Were you there? Not femur.
He broke his leg on
Yeah, his shin.
Yeah,
His shin.
It's not
Yeah. Femur is I think up. Yeah. Yeah. If you break your femur is the hardest bone in the body. That'd be pretty intense to break. Shin is also pretty hard, right? But it's in any event, Anderson Silva broke his leg. Did you see that? Have you heard that name before?
No.
There's a fellow named Anderson Silva. He's an MMA fighter, mixed martial arts, fights with the UFC, and he was fighting against a guy I think name is Weed something or other, and Mexican guy.
Well,
He's from Brazil, I know. That's a and yeah, and the other guy's Mexican.
He's like from California. He's like Spanish.
So anyway, Silva, he's a fighter. He lost twice to the same kid. And Anderson Silva, I think, is the oldest, if not the oldest, one of the oldest fighters in the UFC. Right? He's 39, which is not old, but in terms of fighting, is any sport really. 39 years old, you're towards the except for golf, then you've just begun, right? Kid, how old are you? 25. Go home, right? But he lost twice to this guy. This guy Weed something. I forget the guy's name. Now Anderson Silva is like a pretty hardcore. The first time he lost to him was he was being really cocky. He was being really arrogant. Like, did you see it?
Yeah.
He was like, yeah. He's like,
bobbing, he had his hands down.
yeah, and he put his arms down. He gets punched in the face. He's like, yeah, he was like taunting him. So the guy at one taunt, jab, hit him in the face, and he went back, not joking, and then he hit him again and he knocked him out. And he fell back, he smashed his head on the floor, and then he pounced on him and starts nailing him in the face. And then the referee pulled him off, and he won, right? KO. The next time he fought him, he wasn't as arrogant, but he was coming in for a kick, and when he did like a low kick like this, and the way that Anderson Silva claims, the guy Weeds, whatever his name is, I don't know his name, but Weedman. So Weedman claims that he was ready for it, and he went with the block with his foot. Anderson Silva claims it was instinct and reflex, like he wasn't ready, and you could see based off his position, and they were, showing the replay and whatever. But when he went for the kick down low, like over here, and as he kicked the guy's leg, his leg continued to turn around. You understand? He had basically cracked over here, and the leg just went like that. He drops to the floor in ridiculous pain, and the trainers come, and he lost the fight because of it. Yeah, it's like and when his trainer came, he set his foot back in place, which is in and of itself ridiculously painful. Then he went to the hospital, and he had surgery, bolts and whatever, which is going to up his game because now he's kicking with steel bolts, right? But I don't know how that's fair. He's got like a metal plate in his head, yeah, exactly, titanium grade, like astronaut style.
You don't even need that.
Yeah, I have a friend who when he was a little kid, he got cancer in one of his knees. He had to have one of his legs amputated, and he has the stuff they use on that NASA uses on space missions, like the type of metal. That's the metal he has in his leg, and he does this thing at weddings. He does a lot of shtick at weddings. Like this is what he does for a living. That he does like tricks and cards, whatever, like magic, and he's the guy. People hire him just to make it Labor Day, to make it fun, to make it exciting. Right? You get a bar mitzvah, you get some guy who does this fun stuff. Great job. He got paid like $300 an hour. It was like amazing. I'm not jealous. And in any event, he does this one thing where he goes in the middle. I mean, you won't be able to see not all of you can see my legs well. But he does this thing where he stands in, gotta watch out for this. He stands in the circle and he goes like this. On one foot, he goes like this. And he starts turning. And he keeps the foot straight. And he turns in a full circle. And everyone is freaking out, but it's not real. Right? It's just it's a prosthetic. But he does it, and then he lifts up his leg and he starts throwing it back and forth. I was like, what the heck? They better pay this guy well, yeah? So the point is that Anderson Silva, when he broke his leg, that to reset a break can be very painful. Right? You're familiar with such a concept? Yeah. So, however, even though it's painful, it's necessary if you want to be able to walk again, right? Or use your arm or whatever it is, or your shoulder or whatever. As painful as it is, you've had it done what? What'd you have done? On my knee. On your knee?
Broke and it was like up here.
Oh, wow. And what they do? Who did it? A doctor?
I kind of like when I was laying on the floor, when I leaned back, like I was laying on
You
my
did it
side,
yourself?
and I came this way, my leg just fell forward.
Ouch.
And then my friends, they called 911, they picked me up.
Took like 2 hours till they got there. Anyway, so nice. Nice.
There was literally a hospital like 3 blocks away.
That's good. So it's very painful to get reset. Once it gets reset, it's still painful if you broke something, right? But it's less painful, and it's the beginning of the healing process. Make sense? So far, so good? When somebody does something to their soul, when they ruin their soul in a way which is they've dislocated it or even broke it. You have to set it sometimes. And to set it can be very painful. Setting it is very painful, but is totally worth it for one who understands that there's another world and that souls being set is quite important in order to be able to walk in the next world. You get the idea? Now, whether or not you believe in the soul or not, another discussion which we're about to have in a minute, right? That's what I want to get into in a minute to show you the classic idea that's part of the discovery seminar if we actually get to it. But that's the idea of the soul. So when a person gets stoned, as happened in this place of Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, wherever it was, and probably all of them. So this woman who got accused of adultery and got stoned to death, which was on Yahoo's front page. It's lovely. So you think it's barbaric and it's wrong and it's sick and it's messed up, but why? The woman, according to, how do you pronounce it? Sharia law, right? She needs to get stoned. Now, in terms of Judaism, there's also the stoning and decapitation and strangulation and sreifa and burning, pouring molten lead down your throat. You guys want to join Judaism? Anyone there? Right. But anyway, the idea is that these death penalties, like we did mention yesterday, for those who are here, so we're sorry about the review, maybe it's good to hear again. Like if Moshe Feinstein responded to either Richard Nixon or Ronald Reagan, whoever it was that wrote to him about the death penalty, although yes, we have the death penalty, we go out of our way to make sure that a person doesn't get it, it's very hard to actually get it, etc. But once somebody does get it, it's necessary in order to repair the soul.
Yeah, but how us as humans know that?
How do us as humans know what?
That's necessary to repair the soul. That's metaphysical, and we're physical beings.
Right. So therefore, I don't understand your question.
My question is how we know that's the right thing to do.
Well, you're saying, how do we know the Torah is true? How do we know?
How do we know that murdering people is what will repair the soul?
God told us.
I'll just leave it at that.
What do you mean by that? Don't leave it. Bring it. Bring it.
It's sort of a fallacy of an argument.
Say again, please.
It's a fallacy.
What's a fallacy?
The fact that we would know how to treat the soul.
Well, I don't understand what you're talking about. I'm going to tell you a claim that Judaism has. You will then tell me whether you believe this claim or you don't. Ready? The claim is God spoke to the Jewish people and he gave them a guidebook. This is our claim. Mm-hmm. Do you believe such a thing?
I haven't read it yet, so I have no opinion.
If it were to be true, if monkeys could fly, okay, let's just if monkeys could fly, could they fly?
Yeah, if they could fly, they could fly.
Great, okay, good. Now, if God spoke to us Did he speak to us?
According to Judaism, yes.
If he did, right? And if God gave us a book with guidelines, did he give us a book with guidelines? Good. So Judaism's claim is that God gave us a book with guidelines. So now your question is, how do we know? The answer is because the book he gave us said. If it's true that God gave it, then everything's great. If he didn't give it, so then it's all baloney. Is that true?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Statement is true.
So if I can show you that he actually gave it, then everything's wonderful.
Yeah, then I now understand why.
They would say certain things, right? Okay, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So Islam states that God spoke to Muhammad. Is that right? Or so they claim. Is it true? Maybe, maybe not. But that's the claim. If it's true, then it's true, right? If it's not true, then it's not true. And so the idea of what we're saying is a very straightforward one, and that is everybody has their books of right and wrong, everybody's their ideas of just and unjust, ethics and morals, right? And the bottom line is, well, which one is right? And is there one that's right? Right? So everybody claims what they claim. So I'm going to share with you today over the next 29 minutes, perhaps, Judaism's perspective on the idea of reality. And that is as follows. So we ended yesterday by saying either all religions are correct, either all religions are incorrect or one of them is correct. You cannot have two that are correct. It's either they're all wrong or one of them is right. Yeah? Make sense? If you want to know if something is true or not true, you got to really go back to the beginning. Go back to the beginning of something and say, what are the origins of this idea? Forget step 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What was step number 1? What is step number 1 with every single religion except for Judaism? Every religion except for Judaism, step number 1 is that you have either one person or a very small group of people coming along and making a claim. What is the claim that they make? God spoke with me. I had a revelation. God said to me X, Y, Z. Okay, so far so good? Is that correct? Judaism is the only religion out of all the religions that exist, all the religions that comes along and claims a little bit differently. And what we need to figure out is Judaism's claim, is it an accurate claim or not? What is Judaism's claim? That it wasn't that God came and spoke to one people or a small group of people, but rather God came and he spoke to the entire Jewish people. Big misconception that people have with religion is they say, well, God came and he spoke to Moses, right? Just like you had Muhammad, you had Moses, you had Abraham, and you had John the Smith, and you have all the different things, right? So it's this is what's false. It is true that we do have a God speaking to Moses, but we also have that at the outset of Judaism, that God spoke to the entire Jewish people. This is our claim, okay? This is our claim. I will note that it's very interesting, and I think we said it the other day, that the most kept holiday amongst all holidays in Judaism is the holiday of Passover, right? Now, Yom Kippur, interesting, I hear that. Is that people will do certain things. I don't know that what people do on Yom Kippur. In other words, do majority of people fast on Yom Kippur?
Yeah, what's a fast?
But I'm saying they fast like the whole day?
Nobody wants to fast.
But Yom Kippur is the holiest day of the Jewish calendar.
After Shabbos, good. And after Purim. But the idea is, it is pretty holy, good. But you will find that even though there are many that keep Yom Kippur, I believe there's another one that trumps that. If I'm not mistaken, we spoke about it on Sunday during your meeting. And that was, I hope it was a good one, the holiday of Passover. Right? We find this is pretty much across the board. For those of you in the room who grew up, anybody who grew up not observant in the room, not observant, did you have any connection with Passover in any way, shape, or form?
Sometimes.
Yeah, okay, sometimes. Yeah, well, like, you mean like sometimes on a Tuesday you go for it, or you mean some years?
Like every other year.
Every other year. You're like, oh, it's an off year, right? Okay, good, yeah. So, but you've had something, like where you get together as a family, and what did you do during those get-togethers?
We read stories,
From?
not from the Torah, but from like this Jewish book.
Haggadah. Is that right? Avodim Ayinu, we were slaves in Egypt to Pharaoh, and Laban was bad to us, and let's eat stale bread.
That's it.
Nice. Then you went out to Mickey D's, right? So you just brought it to the table. Okay, but the idea is what? Is that, but there was some connection. the Haggadah. Interesting. But the point is that we find Passover is a very interesting holiday. Now, what's so interesting about Passover? That the Jewish people are at Sinai. God tells Moshe, at least we claim, God tells Moshe, tell the Jewish people, and Moses tells Jewish people, guys, don't ever forget this. Don't ever forget this event that occurred, that the Jewish people experienced God. Never forget that. Teach your children well, and they will teach your kids and make sure they know not to forget about what happened. You got it? And you know what holiday that's called? Holiday of Passover. Interesting. Even the most secular of Jews, you find overwhelmingly keep the holiday of Passover, and they don't even realize why they're keeping it. Why that one? There are so many holidays. Okay, that's one reason. Another one is because God made sure that Moshe tells the Jewish people that this is something not to forget. Why? Because the whole foundation of our religion, the foundation of this relationship, all started at Exodus from Egypt, leading up to Sinai revelation. If you don't know that storyline, you don't know nothing. The ABCs, or more accurately, the A of Judaism, the Aleph, very good. The Aleph, Alufo Shel Olam, the Aleph of Judaism is knowing that God spoke to us at Sinai. This is the claim, and we find that until today, we still remnants of people that have no relationship still teaching it without realizing they're teaching it. The storyline of Egypt, coming to Sinai, amazing. Okay, now, only question is, maybe it's not true. Maybe it's not true. If it is true, then we're good. If it's true, God spoke to the Jewish people and gave them the Torah at Sinai, so then we're good, right? That means everything that we have in that Torah now, from Sinai, that's something which is, well, let's take a look and see what it says. The Torah itself says that the Torah is good. It's there to help you, and it's for a betterment of your soul. And every time a person goes through any sort of pain, it's a tikkun, it's a fixing of some way, shape, or form. And the question is, maybe it's baloney. Maybe it's false. Maybe it's not true. So how can we know that perhaps it's not false and it's actually true? Now, there's two ways we can do this. One way is we could say Judaism versus other religions. The other, we can do Judaism on its own accord, nothing to do with other religions. If we're doing it Judaism versus other religions, in other words, mine is just better than yours, that doesn't make it right, it just makes it better than the others. You get that? In other words, off the bat, I can tell you, if you're going to ask a question, should you go with Judaism or should you go with the other religions? That's not a question. Of course you should go with Judaism or other religions, because look at the base of it. The base of it is, we claim, even if it's fake, our claim is stronger than their claim. Our claim is that God spoke to multiple people. Their claim is that one of them was spoken to. So let's take a look and see. One is us versus them. The other is us on our own right. So we're going to try to hit up both of them. I want to play with you a game. This game is called the Believability game. I'll be your host, Rabbi Friedman. Welcome to the show. No, thank you. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to set before you three scenarios. Right, here we go. Scenario number one. Last night I was home and I was eating dinner. Chicken. The white meat of chicken. Although normally I prefer dark meat, this happened to be quite succulent. It was moist, not dry, with a nice honey mustard sauce. It was cooked.
Kosher?
I hope so. My wife did. I hope it was kosher. I can't, no guarantees, but Eid Echad Neman B'Yisurim style. So, so in any event, it wasn't killed with a serrated knife. That was for sure, right? So it goes like this. As I was eating my poulet, as I was chowing down on my pollo loco, what happened? The ground started to rumble. The ceiling on top of me opened up, and out of nowhere, and a star fell into my house. A little man came out and told me he is the God of the triangles. And I am to join him and to tell all of you today, he told me that I was going to meet 13 people in a room today. with a camera. And there was going to be one girl and one man with long payas. And he said that I should tell you all to give me $100. If you don't believe me, I can prove it. He branded me the God of the triangles. Okay? Now tell me something, people. The God of the... Now tell me. This is a G, right? This is only a G film, so you got to be careful. But did this happen? Did this happen?
No.
He's got a triangle in his hand. Yeah, but I have a triangle too.
I have the God of two triangles.
Did this happen? Yes or no? Did this happen last night?
No.
Did this happen? Don't say anything. Don't say anything. Don't say anything. Did this happen? Pay up.
He said, I'm sold.
It did happen.
You said you were dreaming.
Did it happen?
It's because it's green.
You said it though.
Did it happen? Yes or no?
Yes.
Did it happen?
Yes.
What is with you people? Seriously? Ali, did this happen?
I don't answer stupid questions.
Good. So in other words? No. Okay, Shmuel, what's the answer?
Could have happened.
How do you know it didn't happen?
The thing is, I don't.
Good. It's not likely, improbable, and it's even probable that it didn't happen. Is that correct?
Correct.
Do you know it didn't?
I don't know.
Okay. So the answer is maybe, but probably not. Wouldn't that be a more accurate answer?
Prove that something doesn't exist.
No, we're going to get to that. Do you hear this say what I just said? It's unlikely that it happened, but you don't know it didn't happen. Are we good? Okay. That's scenario number one. Scenario number two. Gentlemen, a lady. It wasn't just me. My wife and kids. My wife and kids were there. Did it happen?
Maybe, but probably not.
Okay. Is it any different than scenario number one?
If you had your wife and kids and they're backing you up, then yes, it would be different.
How so?
Because there's more people.
Good. It would be more likely, but still unlikely. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Does everybody see that? Scenario number one, it was just me. Scenario number two, it was me and a few people, a small group of people. Could it be happen? Could be. Are you going to change your life based off this now? Yes. So the answer is, for most of us, probably not. But you're doing well, right? Probably not. Scenario number three, gentlemen, it wasn't just me and my wife and kids. You were all there.
I'm in. If I was there.
No if. I'm telling you something.
You're telling me I was there.
You were at my house last night.
I don't remember, but
I'm a
yes.
different religion,
I'm
but the
going.
God of X's came to me first.
The God of Johnny. You were at my house last night.
I was.
Did this happen?
No, we go to different. Totally. I was there.
Did this happen? Did this happen? Yes or no?
Speaking of your house, can I come to shower?
Did this happen? Yes or no? Ask me after. Did this happen? Did this?
If I was there.
I'm telling you right now. This is not an if scenario. I'm telling you something. What's your first name again?
Mike.
Michael.
Yeah.
Last night, you were at my house. Do you remember that?
No. I drank a lot that day.
But you certainly don't remember that. Yeah. Mike, were you at my house last night?
No.
So I'm going to tell you a statement. Ready?
Yeah.
Last night, you were at my house and you saw this happen as well. True or false?
False.
Why didn't you say maybe? Not probable, but maybe.
Because I know what I did last night.
Good.
You know what you did last
I was thinking the same thing. Do you like scary movies? Okay, right? So, Mike, scenario number one and scenario number two, maybe. Scenario number three, liar. Are we good? We see a drastic difference between the three scenarios, at least two of the scenarios. 1 and 2 in one section, 3 in the second section. Moses comes down to the Jewish people after being on Sinai. He says, hey guys, Don't ever forget what we experienced. Remember what you saw? You guys were at Mount Sinai and God spoke with you from the fire and you all heard God speaking and you experienced it and you, you're gonna love me, right? And it goes to the idea of saying what? All these ideas. Now, if it wasn't true, what would the Jewish people have responded immediately to Moshe?
I wasn't there for that.
Moshe, come on, man.
What are you trying to tell me?
You almost had us. If you just would have told us that God spoke to you and now you're just relaying it, then we would have gone with it. But it's not true, Moshe. We didn't experience this. Liar. It would have been thrown out immediately. Yet we have, as our history, such a statement. Isn't that wild? Now let me tell you something, people. In every religion, in everything in life, you have two things. You have something called legend and you have something called history. What's the difference between legend and history? One word. Proof. I was looking for another word, but that's a good word. Fact.
Well, isn't history a story from one person, technically?
That's cute. That's cute. The only problem is we spell history with the one S, not two. Yeah. Otherwise it'd be he, story. I'd say like this. He, story. But we have as follows. The word I'm looking for was verification. Can you verify it? Can you prove it? In which case then it becomes history. Everybody get that idea?
Sure.
One way of verification, probably one of the most common ways of verification, is the number of eyewitnesses. If you have 100,000 people saying something, it's likely that it's true. Does that make sense? Not 100,000 people telling you something that someone told them. 100,000 people telling you something that they themselves experienced. Do we get the difference? We just right away cut out all the religions like Christianity who would say, well, we have billions of people that follow that. First of all, it's not billions, it's billions, right? But the people following it, answers and telling you something, but none of them are saying they witnessed it. Does everybody get it? They're all saying, they believe.
Yeah, their claim is like, oh, it's what I feel.
Their claim is that they believe that something is true, right? I once met a guy, I was in Montreal, Canada, as opposed to another Montreal. And when I was there, I had to get my pants hemmed. For the English in the room, my trousers. So I brought my trousers to the tailor. When I got to the tailor, I give him in my pants, and I say to the guy, okay, could you hem the bottom, whatever? And as I'm waiting there, I see by his cash register, there's a little booklet. And the little booklet says on it, see the light. I want to see the light. So I opened it up. Page 1. It says Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created. I said, okay, it's not Rashi's pshat, but I hear. Page 2. And Jesus, I said, whoa, hold on one second. So I turned to the guy behind the cash and I say to him, you believe this stuff? He's like, believe what? Like, you believe Jesus, Christianity? He's like, of course. You believe in Jesus? Yeah. I'm like, how do you know Jesus even existed, let alone that he's the Son of God? So he goes, and I was not expecting this. I met him.
Yeah, Jesus.
Hi, story. So I said, you met him? He said, yeah. I said, one second. I go, how do you know Jesus exists? He goes, I met him. Enlighten me. Show me the light. He said, well, when I was about 11 years old, I was quite sick. And then I got better. Jesus. I'm not kidding, by the way. This really happened, right? So you've experienced this?
I was a Christian for 6 years.
Oh, so there you go. So I was like, what did you say? He said, I was 11, I was sick, I got better. Jesus. I said, why didn't you say you were 11, you got sick, you got better, little white bunny rabbit? Where are you getting, in this hand, where are you getting the idea of, Neo? Why are you telling me that it was Jesus? Where did you get that from? So he started to get a little whatever. I'm like, you're not gonna like ruin my pants, are you? Right? They came back with a little fish on the bottom, right? Gefilte. So he's like, no, it will do just fine if you believe. Right? So anyway, it came out of that conversation pretty clear. This guy has no idea what he's talking about. Like, no way backing up. And I found, and if you've experienced this, I've had many conversations with Christians. And they try to, go to Jeremiah 31, Isaiah 53, and you check out, how do you say it in English? Ecclesiastes chapter, verse 5 over there. You're going to find that it says. So Rabbi Berger gave me a great way to respond to these people. So this guy says to me once, it's happened to me. I've had it so many times like this. I was stopped in the street once. A guy was wearing a mezuzah on his head. He had a mezuzah literally between his eyes. He took Shema and mezuzah together. Yeah? And he's wearing his mezuzah. And he's like, hey, I know you. I'm like, oh no, right? And I'm like, no speak English, right? He's like, me neither, but I know you, right? So I was like, where do you know me from? He goes, Essentials. This guy came to this room. And I remembered him after he said it, because in the middle of the class, I was talking about something, nothing to do with what he said. I'm talking about like happiness, and he goes, well, doesn't it say in Proverbs 26:8? And he starts saying something. I'm like, yeah, it does say that. In any event, I know what he was doing, right? And he's like, oh, like he didn't realize like it didn't make any sense until afterwards. He realized it didn't make any sense. So this guy says to me, well, what about Jeremiah 31? What are you going to do with Jeremiah 31? Okay, so I went through different things and whatever. When I was speaking to Rabbi Berger about it, he said, this is all you have to do. When the guy says to you, what about Jeremiah 31? Just turn back to him and say, well, what do you say about Jeremiah 32? The guy will then say, what is Jeremiah 32? And then you say, you're telling me that you understand Jeremiah 31, but you don't even know what it says in 32? Have a good day. And I tried it. I was walking out, I met some other guy.
So when they say, what about Isaiah 53?
The guy goes 53. It's happened. The guy goes, what about Isaiah 52? I'm like, oh yeah, well, what are you going to do about Isaiah 52? He's like, what about it? I said, exactly. You have no idea, do you? Right? You're just repeating what someone else told you, right? So like, so the point is, they just believe. If that's what do you believe in life after love, after love, after love, after love? Understand that what happens when a person goes that, can you back yourself up? And when you get into a conversation with a Christian, very often they won't want to continue the conversation.
Yes.
Because they don't have a way of backing it up. I was on a train on the light rail, and this guy comes over to me, and he was looking for directions. So I said to him, where do you need to go? There's no way I'm going to finish this. he's like, I'm like, where do you need to go? And he starts to tell me it's to get to whatever. He was a German fellow, a young German guy. He must be in his early 20s. I said to him, so what are you doing here? He said, I'm missionizing with a rabbi. I said, really? And then he goes, do you believe in Jesus? So I said, I don't know. Do you believe in Jesus? So he said, yes. I said, so, help me. Help me. I said, I'm like, help me. You believe? He goes, yeah. I said, do you believe or like, do you know? He's like, oh, I know. I'm like, how do you know? He goes, well, Jeremiah 31. I'm like, what does it say? He's like, hold on. And he like takes out and he reads. It does not say Jesus. Right? I said, but how do you know that's Jesus? It's like, well, that's what I learned. I'm like, so do you know or do you believe? I said, I believe. I said, but do you know? He goes, yeah, I know. I'm like, how do you know? It's like Jeremiah 31. I said, does this sound familiar to you? We had this conversation about 12 seconds ago. Jeremiah 31 doesn't say Jesus. How do you know it's Jesus? He goes, well, I don't know. I'm like, so do you know? He's like, yeah. I'm like, how? Jeremiah 31. I was like, okay, dude. You know what I'm saying? And then it turns into, and then they go crazy on you. They start like going nuts in different ways and whatever, and how we should all die and they should eat us and their matzah. But the point is that there's no way backing up because that's what it's all about. You see, can you verify it? What's the source? Every religion comes down to one. When you go look at the numbers, just the story, but maybe the story is made up. Maybe the Jewish people never had Sinai, and it was just made up, right? Maybe it was just made up. Is that a claim? That could be. In which case we just uproot Judaism also?
You have to keep
No, you have to convince one person that there was once a people that this happened to, and then just build on it.
It's not gonna work.
Why? Do you understand what I said so far? Right. So what I'm saying so far is that first I said something and then I rebutted. And before I don't want too much confusion. History versus legend. So to understand history is when you can verify. Number of eyewitnesses is a huge factor. If you have one or very few, it could be it happened. Maybe Jesus did have God speak to him. Maybe Muhammad did. I don't know. But I'm certainly not going to just take his word for it. What are his credentials and how do I know? And even if he's a great guy, like why would I change my whole lifestyle that one guy says that this happened? Good? Now we're saying that Judaism doesn't claim that though. We claim that God spoke to 3 million people. At least 600,000 between the ages of 20 and 60. Men between the ages of 20 and 60. Estimate that's women, 600,000 between the ages of 20 and 60. They each have 1.2 kids. Comes out to about 3 million. They weren't Haredi yet. So we're talking about now that what do we have is about 3 million people, right? 600,000 people or 3 million people, even just 600,000 people. That's a big number. That already becomes that, hey, this probably did happen. But how do you know? So this already, I'm not willing to play that game with you. In other words, what I mean by that is that if you're going to tell me and play the game of how do you know, then I'll say back to you, how do you know anything? You can't know anything, in which case the word knowledge is out the window. Yet we don't do that. We live our lives with a word called knowledge, right? You know there's a place called China, even though you've never been there, because there's a certain amount of evidence that shows as such. Once you bring a certain amount of evidence, that now becomes in the realm of knowledge. Does everybody understand that idea? Is that fair? And even if you don't know 100%, doesn't matter. That's called knowledge, right? So now, yeah.
I just question.
Hit it.
What makes the difference that with someone else, with the other two religions, saying that one person spoke to God, but at this point, as many as it's passed down, it could be that one person wrote a story in Judaism saying that this many people spoke.
And they made it up.
Exactly.
Good, I'm going to get that. That's what I'm saying right now.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying right now. That's what we're up to. Yeah?
At this point,
Well, allow me
it's out.
to do that. Good. So before we even it out, we have a claim that 600,000 people experienced God. If that claim is true, in other words, it seems pretty true. I mean, the fact that we have that story, but maybe not, right? Maybe not. Maybe this didn't actually occur. Maybe. Maybe what happened is that some guy made it up. Let's try to think about that. I want to share with you something. This is a very crucial step in understanding where we're going with this. I'm not looking for a possibility. I'm looking for probability, and I'm looking for reasonable. Are we together on this? I'm looking to be a reasonable person. I'm looking to weigh out the options, and I want to see, does something make sense? We could come up with 1,000 theories as per why the sun is in the place it is. But it's just not probable to say because some guy threw it there. We could come up with a lot of theories as per why Japan is how it is. It's just not plausible that because their God came and split it up. You understand what I'm saying? If you know the history of Japan and their old culture. It just doesn't, and the sun god and this and the other. Okay, maybe. You can say, I want to come up with reasonable claims. Isn't it reasonable to say that this story was made up? Is it reasonable to say that this story was made up and it was accepted as history? Do you understand what I'm saying? Number one, if it is reasonable to say that it could have been done, so let me ask you something. 4,200 religions. Clearly, at least 4,199 are baloney. And the ones that made it, they know it's baloney. They made it, right? What's a stronger claim if you want to start a religion? To get to tell you someone that this started with God revealing himself to 600,000 people or God revealing himself to one? What's a stronger claim? Would everyone agree with that?
Yeah.
Would everyone agree with that? How come no one in history has even attempted to claim the concept of national revelation besides Hare Krishna, which we'll see in a minute?
All of them died anyway.
Good, that's exactly. So therefore we don't have to get into it. Right? How come nobody ever came and claimed such a thing? Isn't it the strongest claim? If it can be faked, we know history has shown anything that can be copied, not only will be copied, was copied already. You get it? When the iPhone came out, how many touchscreen phones were there the next day in China? I don't know either, but a heck of a lot. Yeah? You get what I'm saying? Knockoffs, as soon as you figure it out, it's done, it's knocked off. If it can be, especially this is the best way to start a religion. How come nobody claimed it? Peculiar. Maybe they didn't claim it because they can't claim it, because it's such a phenomenal claim that unless it actually happened, there's no way you'll get away with it. Because as soon as it's claimed, the people will ask, well, where are the people? You understand? If I come to you right now and say, hey man, it's unbelievable, 3 million people, just X, Y, Z, are you gonna be like, I'm in? Or you're like, where, who? You get it?
Yeah.
Now you're gonna say, today, we're so many years later, but the point is it wouldn't have even got off the ground in the first place. It's not reasonable to say it would have gotten off the ground in the first place, had not happened. You get that? But maybe it was claimed later in history that someone came along and they wrote it, they said that look at this book, oh, there's another reason why it doesn't make sense. So do you want to, what do you got?
Yeah, because you can, like, it's like, oh, your great-great-grandfather.
Good, I'll tell you right now, and here's another claim. I come right now to this room, okay? Friedman steps up, and I go and I say, hey. And you're like, hey. And I go, check it out, I got a Torah. And you're like, what's a Torah? I'm like, everybody's doing it. Yeah, and then you're like, really? And you're like, no one is actually, but you got to check it out. You're like, well, what is it? You're like, check. So you open it up, and you're like, oh, cool. In the beginning, God created the world. That's interesting. And it goes on to Noah and Lech Lecha and Abraham and all this. You're like, this is cool. And you go to me, you're like, well, what is this? I'm like, dude, this is the book of your ancestors. This is the book of your ancestors. And you're like, really? Whoa. And you go on, and you get to the part where it says, and God appeared to 600,000 people and showed himself to them. And then you go, wait a minute. Hold on one second. Are any of you history majors? Does anybody here learn history? Yeah. American history? Yeah? Anyone else? Yeah? You're good with American history?
Define history.
Okay. His story. How's it going like this, yeah? Listen, decent with American history? Okay, let me ask you a question. What happened in 1631? 1631.
Are you smarter than a fifth grader?
Is this the point that we should know?
What?
Come on, people. 1631, very simple. Let me share with you. In 1631, what happened is that there was a massive flood in North America. The entire United States, from the months of May until August, were submerged underwater. May, June, July, August. From May 1st till August 31st, submerged underwater. Miraculously, all plant and animal and human life adapted, survived. On August 31st, the waters receded, and life resumed as normal.
Oh, it's the great North American Noah's Ark.
That's right. Did this
The
happen?
buildings are so high, so they could have gone underwater.
Did this happen?
No,
How do you know it didn't happen?
because there's records of that year in history books.
Tell me, what did the record say?
Well.
Good. Did it happen, yes or no?
Almanac.
You're almost there. Did it happen, yes or no?
No,
How do you know? Think.
I don't.
Come on, you do.
Living in America.
July 4th, 1776, what happened?
Independence Day.
Have you heard of such a thing?
Papers. Yeah, I've heard of it. I just don't know exactly.
Okay, but you know about July 4th,
Yeah.
right? You didn't know 1776 in particular. But anyway, so
Well, this calculation side, I mean,
okay, good. John Hancock's signature is bigger than everyone's, right? Wrong. It's actually just a dramatization. He was just the first one who signed, so they made it look like that, but it's really the same size. In any event, the idea is, that was just a little history thing to see if you guys actually did know history. But the point that we find is that in 1631, did this happen? The answer is absolutely not. How do you know? Because you're from North America, right? And if such an occurrence would have happened, you didn't know because you're not from there. But if such a thing would have happened, there's no way you wouldn't have heard about it, right?
Yeah.
Such a phenomenal event occurred. I'm from that area and I never heard of it.
Unbelievable.
You get to this part and you read and it goes, and God came to all the Jewish people. And you're like, wait a minute. You mean to tell me the most phenomenal event that ever occurred in history, that God spoke to the Jewish people, and Grandpa never told me this? The guy returns by saying, well, simple. Grandpa got ran over by a reindeer walking home from our house Christmas Eve. You may not believe in Santa, but for me and Grandpa, we believe. No one?
It was Grandma got on over by a reindeer.
Oh, Grandma got ran over. That might be why no one else got it. I was like, oh, Grandma. Why did you say? Safta got ran over. I don't know, but we have what? We have it in Deus. That there's no way you wouldn't have heard about it. Do you get it?
Yeah.
So as soon as someone comes and gives this book to you, it's like, baloney. It couldn't have been done. Do we hear this? Let's put these things together. Let's take a look and see. Is it more or less reasonable that this occurred? This is the question I ask you. We have in our history that 3 million people experienced God at Sinai, God speaking to us and giving us the Torah. No one else in history has claimed such a thing, which is the strongest claim that can be made. No one else has claimed such a thing. There's no way, or it's unlikely and unreasonable to say it would have been faked because immediately it would have been shot down. It was being claimed that we ourselves experienced, not us, but back in the day that they experienced it. It still exists today. What's going on? And not only that, it's predicted in the Torah. We read in this past week's portion. Not only has no one claimed it, no one will ever claim this. How could it know such a thing? How could it know? So the one reason I can know is because it's from God. And reasonably speaking, it makes more sense that this happened than that it didn't. At least 51% and possibly a lot more. So now if we put into perspective this, with everything we were talking about yesterday and the beginning of today, anything that's in the Torah, even if it seems cruel and unusual, at the end of the day, it is ultimately for our best. Any other religion that claims something, if it happens to fit with the Torah, great. But if it doesn't, and it goes against the Torah, so not only is it wrong, but it's also wrong. I know that was heavy. Okay, people, any questions, comments, stories, jokes, attacks? Please see them verbal and physical. Hit it.
Yeah, like look at the timeline. Look at the timeline when the Jews actually received the commandments from God. They already came out of the Sea of Reeds. You know, they already came out of Egypt. So like God was like, oh, I'm going to give you this book and blah blah blah. If one of them, like, you know, he wrote in the book that, okay, this happened to you. If one of them were to be like, hey, I wasn't there for that, you could just nullify it right there.
That's right. You could chuck the whole thing.
So what you just said is like is an example in Torah by itself. Because,
Very good.
You know, if I'm walking through a giant sea.
Or in Memphis.
Yeah, yeah. So like you know, if you're walking through that, then it's like, okay, I wasn't there for that, but yeah, I'm gonna still believe what you're telling me. You know, it's making sense.
Right. Very good. Excelente. Okay, people, any other questions, comments, stories, jokes, stacks? What are we done? Hit it. Hit it, man. Hit that thing.
One is I'm still a little confused with the idea, with not the clarification of my earlier question being, how can we know, or I don't want to say that, how do you know, but kind of it's that premise of the question. It's that I understand now. I think the argument now in my head is that if you're going to follow a religion, the most likely religion is Judaism.
So that's one versus the others,
and
correct?
Then but now my question is, so it's like, yeah, it's Judaism or nothing.
Okay.
But now,
Maybe it's nothing.
Now let's focus on Judaism.
Let's do
and
that.
How can you?
Is it reasonable to say that it was made up? That's the question. The very nature of the claim's existence is proof to its veracity. Did you hear that? The very nature of the fact that we have this storyline is proof that it's true, regardless of any other religion.
Why is it true?
So you tell me, is it reasonable to say that it was made up? We have a storyline that 3 million people experienced God.
Yeah, I think,
Is it reasonable to say it was made up?
yeah.
Please enlighten me with the story. Go. I'm ready.
Well, I think that the same way how we say another religion like Christianity.
And what's the difference? They say one thing: believe, not know. Believe.
Okay, so what I'm saying is there could have been a guy. There could have been.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but there could have been a guy just like Jesus, let's say for Christianity, could have been a guy in Judaism who wasn't like so focused on trying to glorify himself. He was just trying to create a bigger thing, and he didn't do it for selfish reasons. And he could have created a whole storyline, a nice little.
Give it to me. Fine, no problem. And what happened?
And then people.
Who did he give it to? Give me a case. Spell out the case. Think of a case. He came and he gave it to Bob. And he goes, hey, Bob, look at this. And Bob's like, what? I never heard of this. It says in the book that my grandparents experienced this. In the book you're giving me, it says my grandparents experienced this.
But there's 2 billion, or there's like a bunch of millions and billions of people who believe Christianity, and that's how that started.
Again, listen again.
Correct? Am I right?
Incorrect. Listen to the words. First of all, it gets a little bloody when we go to the beginning of Christianity, literally, in terms of forced conversions and crusades and beautiful murders, right? So a lot of it came from, you have to or we'll kill you, right? So if you're taking in terms of just that, not necessarily. If you look from another angle, in terms of Judaism, Christianity actually began to be able to move away from Judaism. In other words, it was people that were Jewish, and they would say, oh, you don't have to do certain mitzvos, you do other ones, etc. Right? They based it off Judaism. You get it? Christianity itself says that this happened. Every Christian who knows what they're talking about will say, yes, Sinai happened. Of course it happened. The only question is what happened later. They say God changed his mind. I don't want to get into that because then we're focusing just on Christianity. I can answer that. But let's not focus only on Christianity. Let's focus on the whole thing. Give me a storyline that's reasonable, that's probable to show me how it was faked. Did you understand? Yeah. And come back to me. Obviously, if you don't get me right now, so come back and come up. But every time you come up with something, you have to ask yourself the following question. What's more reasonable?
What's
That or that it actually happened? Yeah. You understand? Yeah. Okay, people, I got a bus. It's been a pleasure. I'll see you when I see you. If I don't, then I won't. Take care and have a wonderful, wonderful day.